Welcome, welcome, welcome to Out of the Blue, number 87. So, here you are, looking over my folder. There's my pile of completed hand-lettered posters, and yet another invitation to come out to the Roots Room Saturday, March 12th, 2016, 7 o'clock, 5203 North Kimball Avenue. Car songs and love songs. So we're talking about Frances, and I'm going to talk a little more about Frances. So this is one of her books. You don't have to be crazy, but it helps. Talking about her life in magic. Here's a nice picture of her. Frances Ireland, notice this is published before. This is published while Laurie Ireland, her husband, was still alive. But I want to point out, here's another publication of hers that she worked on. Here's a book of hers called My First 50 Years in Magic. Oh, and I wanted to point something out in here. So I mentioned Tarbell. Earlier in this series, for whoever's following along, which basically means, at this point, who's following along now, my mom and DJ Mondo. Hi, Mom, and hi, DJ Mondo. But earlier in the series, I went over to Tarbell's house. Because I'm in Chicago, I'm in Lincoln Square, and the original Tarbell course was, if you have the very original ones, it was shipped from Sunnyside Avenue. So I went over to, now there's the French school there, and I did a couple from Tarbell's old neighborhood. And so Frances says, I knew Doc, meaning Dr. Tarbell, very well, and I knew him to be a man of many facets. He told me one day, in the month after his wife died, that he had gone into her room and a shaft of sunlight fell on the bed. The whole room became filled with the odor of flowers, and he gathered up the roses that fell on the bed. Doc believed this happened, as he often believed mystic and inspirational thoughts. So this confirms something I already suspected, which is that Harlan Tarbell was mystically minded, and his course, the Tarbell course in magic, is essentially practical mysticism, and that's ironic because mysticism is nowhere in stage magic now. But I want to point out something about Frances. I'm going to talk about Frances a little more. She was an amazing person. And we have here, she wrote a series called The Success Book. And they're all this big, right? And this is number 3, and this is number 4. Just extraordinary. She didn't write every word in them. Part of it was compiled, but a lot of it was written by her. And she also wrote these Ireland's Years books back when Ireland magic was happening. And here's a compilation of the yearbook reader. Ireland yearbook for the year 1951. So there's all these tricks, pictures. So Frances was an inspiration and an asset to her field. And Frances also, I mean, this building where I am right now, I owe the fact that I'm here in part to Frances, because it was in part due to Frances's diligence and hard work that the mortgage of this building got paid. So, in a way, Frances spiritually inhabits this building. So I also want to point out that when I talk about this, I mentioned the great unfolding. I'm talking about something that's happening here in my world, but I do not want to give the impression that I am orchestrating it. I am more observing it. And I see it happening. And one of my motives in this series is to chronicle this unfolding as it happens, because there's not really many people who are hip to it at the moment. And so by chronicling it now, before the throngs rush in, I'm able to kind of set the stage early in the game. Now, as I've talked in other episodes, I'm a student of religion, and a lot of the things historically that are happening in Europe, for example, and in this country, have religious foundations. And so, but I've also noticed that just talking about religion makes people uncomfortable. They don't even want to hear anything about the subject at all. And they think even if you're just talking about it, then you're proselytizing, which means you're trying to preach. And I have my own ideas, which I present, but my own ideas are, Neo-Swedenborgianism, as I've said, is not a belief. It's a rational observation. But when I start talking about heaven and the afterlife, nobody believes me that I'm being rational, because the idea that you can speak rationally about heaven and the afterlife has not quite caught on yet. But that's what I'm doing, is that you can study people's perceptions of the afterlife in this extreme state of near death, just like you can study anything else. And you can talk about heaven because it's in the data. It's in the data that these people report. And it's a first-person report, granted, but that is because this state of mind is experienced in the first person only. And so to try to talk objectively about something which is purely subjective is not possible. Now, that said, I'm going to read this little thing I found. Holiday Greetings, 1912 to 1913. This is a little card I found, because I'm in this building and there's all this old stuff in the building, like that dictionary with the little "I want to borrow your rat" note in it. I live in this building full of funny little things like that. So I'm going to read this just to point out what a different world we live in. So this is 106 years ago. To our friends and brethren, believing in the dispensing of good cheer at this holiday season, we send you this little token of our love. After a ministry of 1 year with the Central Park, New York, I'm assuming, Central Park Church, in which time we have learned to love many new friends and to point them all to, quote, the friend that sticketh closer than a brother, we enter upon the new year taking courage. The, quote, giver of every good and perfect gift has given many blessings in the past year to the church in added numerical and spiritual strength, as well as giving to us a greater vision for the future, both here and hereafter. Even for our griefs, defeats, and disappointments, we are grateful, realizing that all these sorrows, quote, do work a more exceeding weight of glory, end quote. Another quote. Forgetting the things which are behind and stretching forward to the things which are before, we press on toward the goal unto the prize of the high calling of God. Yours in Christian love, Mr. and Mrs. Ralph C. Harding. So that was their Christmas greeting, 1912, 1913.